Alright, y'all, I'm making my way back from the store to, get this thing, which kind of pisses me off because last week I bought a whole set of whisk, like a 3-pack, and that shit was like $7. And you're probably wondering, well, why didn't you get this in the first place last week instead of wasting $7 on a whisk or on a pack of whisk? Well, reason being is because those fuckers, the Dollar Tree was closed, and my only option was going to, Kroger. So that's how that cookie crumbled, because I was making some sort of batter. But anywho, before I go on that tangent, yeah, this video is actually a video in response to, now that it's finally on my mind. I've only been up for about a couple hours, so my brain's still, and body and brain still trying to wake up. Even though it's probably like almost 3 o'clock now, it's probably about. Yep, it is 3:22. And I've been up since 12 and still ain't really just fully awakened. But I'm making this video in response to I believe the YouTube channel's name is McDojo Life or something like that, something to that effect. And he posted an update first. About a few months ago, back in the spring, he posted this video about this judo instructor in Taiwan who was basically ragdolling this new student. And I'm almost certain, this kid was probably in, his very first judo class. He wasn't, I don't know how long he had been taking judo, since the incident happened, but he wasn't in there for a very long time. And this fucking asshole, masquerading as a judo instructor, masquerading as, a high-ranking don in the art, was fucking using this kid, like I said, as a fucking rag doll. They said that he tossed this kid some 27 times. And this is like a little kid. This kid was like 8-9 years old. Probably younger than that, I dare say. He could have been 6 or 7. I'll completely forget the details. But this fucking asshole was tossing this kid and having, more experienced students, basically judo throw his ass some 27 times, despite the fact that the kid was crying, despite the fact that the kid was screaming, begging the instructor to stop. He kept going along with it. And when the kid finally slipped out of consciousness, he claimed that he was faking it. He claimed, after all that brutality, after all that barbarism, he said he was faking it. You believe that? For some odd reason, it takes me back to when I remember back in Memphis, I was in Edo. And after eating a hearty meal and whatnot, and guzzling down a couple of beers, and mind you now, we used to say this, like I was so-and-so, I was in such and such place, minding my own Negro business. And so, I kind of slipped into a food coma. And there was some Sambo ass Negro, some Kermit the Frog looking ass Negro, who ironically enough spoke Japanese. But unfortunately, this brother, if I can't even, I'll take that back. This Sambo was such a self-hating coon that he didn't want to have anything to do with me, despite the fact that I too speak Japanese. But he took the time within his little self-hatred to chime in on the current state of affairs as far as me slipping into a food coma and, being asleep for about, sleeping off the booze, sleeping off a little bit of that food, that was coursing in my system, fucking with my glucose levels and shit, again, causing me to go into a food coma. Because the lady who worked there, who ironically enough was Taiwanese, yeah, it was a Japanese restaurant, but, you had several people from, all over Asia working there, like fucking Vietnam, Thailand. I mean, you even had a few from your waitresses from Japan, Korea. But this lady, was well known, and she was from Taiwan, and she was like, he's over there sleeping, or something to the effect that, he's sleeping. And then the Sambo gonna say he's probably faking it. I'm here to expose there's a certain type of evil that exists out there that is so sociopathic, that even in the event of you reacting to certain things, like be it injury, be it, you succumbing to injury, you succumbing to any kind of hurt, any kind of, just anything, even something as mundane as that, because clearly I wasn't hurt. I was just, like I said, I stuffed my face in my gut, and I got a little drowsy, because I did have a couple beers in there, and I fell asleep. But, on a more serious note, you have a certain kind of evil that even in the face of, the most innocent among us, which I believe to be children, with the exception of sociopathic children, with the exception of those fuckers, the most innocent among us succumbing to their injuries, slipping out of consciousness, going into a state of comatose. These fuckers will say he's faking it. See, in our little space where we, research the world and, observe the things that, observe the ills of the planet, we call somebody like that a sociopath. That's a fucking sociopath. And see, it's because of incidents like that. And, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but, unfortunately, the kid ended up succumbing to his injuries because at first, like, he had been brutalized so badly after being tossed. Mind you now, an expert, probably his first day in a judo class, he's up here being probably getting all kinds of osoto garis, all kinds of hanegosh, and tayatosh thrown on him, where he's hitting shit like this, and I hope they were on the mat, but believe me, you don't, even a mat, even when you getting thrown to the earth on a fucking mat, that shit hurts. That shit, it literally knocks the wind out of you. I remember one time, cause I took a semester of judo in college. And I remember one time, I walked in. Well, this was like years after I had taken judo. But I had walked in on this judo class, and this happened. I didn't see it, but this happened just shortly, because I heard the thud. So I'm like, damn, somebody got slammed. And apparently this guy had been, had gotten thrown to the mat with a Taiwanese. And for those of you who aren't familiar with judo, Taiwanese is basically a throw by which, you set, in order to accomplish these throws, you have to set the opponent up with, by off balancing them. In Japanese, it's called kazushi. And the way you off balance him, you off balance him to the front, so you propel him towards you, so he's off balance, forwards, because some throws require him to be, thrown off balance backwards, but this throw actually requires you to be thrown off balance forwards. And then, unlike Ogosha, unlike a hip throw where, you load him on your hips, you actually load him on, like the back of your calf. So both of his legs, he's projecting forward and you're on the back of your calf. Like you have both his legs at the back of your calf. And it's kind of bent as you do it. And mind you, now you're pulling him towards you. So you basically have one hand on the neck part of his lapel, and the other hand on this the chest area of his lapel. And just before throwing him, you snap your leg out. And it's a very fast throw. It's a very vicious throw. And usually people who are experts know how to break fall from their throw, and they do so by allowing themselves to propel forward so that they don't end up falling on their face. Because with a throw like that, being thrown like that almost instantly, if you don't know how to break fall from that, you'll fuck around, fall flat on your face, literally face first. I mean, I think that's one of those throws. I think Taiwanese is one of those throws that literally comes from jiu-jitsu, because I mean, you can easily, obviously, cause blunt force trauma, any kind of throw where somebody's landing face first. And I dare say you can even, with enough force, and depending on how he impacts the earth, you could probably even break the neck, via whiplash. So I'm making my way, towards the area, where they're, practicing, judo and jiu-jitsu. And, I hear this thud. I see this guy, picking himself up after being thrown. He sits down somewhere, and then the guy starts convulsing. This dude starts convulsing, and it got to the point where they had to basically call the ambulance, because and that was on the mat. He hit the mat. He hit his forehead on the mat, because somebody threw him with Taiwanese, which in Japanese literally means body drop. Not body throw, it means body drop. Because nage means throw, otoshi means drop, or you just drop somebody. And his sister came in, after they called the meds and whatnot, and she's all holding her mouth and getting all emotional and whatnot, because she's looking at her brother, all discombobulated, from the fact. So as bad as that was, just imagine some kid who has no earthly idea of what judo is, what the rules are, how do you counter this and counter that, being under the guidance, the so-called guidance of this jackass masquerading as some sort of judo expert.